Our webinar today is about how artificial intelligence drives insurance sales productivity with Salesforce, Conversica, and Spring Venture Group. Our webinar is scheduled for about 25 minutes, after which we will open up to Q&A from the audience at the end. So to get you going, let's have a polling question for you to answer. Are prospects getting harder to reach? How much of your agent's day is dedicated to contacting prospects versus having a sales conversation? Okay, well, let's just take a look at the results here. Obviously, many of you relate to this problem, right? It confirms what we already know. Agents are spending too much time trying to reach out to customers instead of actually engaging with them. Even if it's just a quarter of your time, that's still a good chunk of your day. And the problem here is that while you are trying to actually get in touch with customers, that time could have been spent discovering customer wants and needs, offering relevant advice, and earning their trust. Even worse, before an agent even picks up the phone, he or she is spending time prioritizing leads and figuring out which customer is the most promising to call on, or how best to spend his or her time. So what we want to focus today is really about how artificial intelligence drives insurance sales productivity, and in particular with Salesforce Conversica, and we also want to share with you a case study that Spring Venture Group will present.
Thanks, Jeff. Hello, everyone. This is Eric Boren. I lead business development for Conversica, including our strategic partnership with Salesforce. And previously, I led business development at DocuSign, so I've been fortunate to have worked with Salesforce and insurance companies on transforming the insurance sales process for the last 5 years. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, everybody. This is Alex Allen. I am VP of Marketing at Spring Venture Group. We are a Salesforce and Conversica customer, and very excited to share our experiences with you today.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Eric and Alex. Let's just kind of provide some context before we get into the meat of the conversation here. So there are a number of drivers for the need for engaging with customers at scale and in a very natural way. First, you'll see here that 79% of insurance leads never result in an actual sale, and only 2% of cold calls actually lead to an appointment. So the yield on the time that agents are spending on their opportunities is obviously very low. Agents are also spending about 80% of their time prospecting and only 20% closing. And to make matters worse, the customers are starting to have a bit of a backlash to really robotic kinds of interactions with their insurers. Many are craving personalized service. And in addition to that, there are some regulatory forces. In summary, I'm stating probably what you already know. Lead quantity has increased dramatically, but lead quality has dropped commensurately, and it is very hard and expensive to distinguish between tire kickers and real buyers. If we look at this from the perspective of the customer, he or she is interacting with insurers through a variety of different channels and products. And each touch point here, the dots in blue, represents an opportunity for insurers to engage with that policyholder. It's an opportunity to discover new things about that policyholder and her household. All of the touch points that are in red are opportunities where we can drive natural kinds of conversations, nurture an opportunity, and allow agents to nurture that lead until it's a high quality one in which they would actually engage with that customer personally. Again, this is about forming a natural conversation or a dialogue with that customer, but also being able to do it at scale. But it really boils down to three key things that insurers are driven to do. The first is to be able to digitize the experience, but also provide a natural dialogue within that experience, and to provide a seamless brand across the various touch points, whether it's through different products or through different channels. The second key takeaway from this, that insurers are looking for a platform for engagement, being able to track the various kinds of interactions that they're having with policyholders, being able to prioritize opportunities as they arise, And thirdly, to be able to, again, engage in a natural discovery process that's frictionless both for policyholders and employees. And then finally, the third thing that insurers are aspiring to is supercharging employees. And by that, what we mean is that we're providing agents and employees the tools that they need to prioritize and to qualify the opportunities that are coming in and enabling them to spend their time and energy on the right kinds of customers and opportunities. I will talk a little bit about some of the roadmap to actually getting to a predictive state. And you can see here that with the three things that we talked about in terms of digitizing, single view of customer and engagement, as well as supercharging employees, there's a crawl, walk, run strategy to get to a mature state of being predictive. And you can see here it begins with the blocking and tackling capabilities of personalizing the experience, integrating the experience across the back office systems, and having a single view of the customer. The second phase is around providing context. So once you have that single view of the customer, we're able to provide relevant communications and offers within context of that customer's life events. Third, it's really about tying the marketing engagement at the outset and tying that in the sales process as well as the servicing process so that it is truly a seamless experience both for the policyholders as well as for the agent. And then finally, when we get to the fourth phase, this is really about maximizing use of your data. Once we've captured all that information about the policyholders, we're able to act predictively and proactively send the right kinds of offers and service experiences to that policyholder. So if we move on to the next phase, you can see how you know when you've actually gotten to each of these phases. We talked a bit about single source of truth, right? Enabling a community and a natural dialogue with customers, providing context to the agents, and providing intelligent prioritization of the opportunities that are coming in, being proactive, and then actioning on those insights. So as I'd mentioned before, I want to talk about some of these key things and these developments in the context of a real-life case study. So I'd like to invite Alex to share with us his story.
Hello again, this is Alex. I work for Spring Venture Group. I head up the marketing department. We specialize in the sale of health and life insurance, including supplemental Medicare, which is our main focus right now. We're completely an inside sales shop. We handle the marketing, customer service, and administrative portions of the business. All of our agents work full-time for us, all on-site here in Kansas City, Missouri. What we do, what our value prop is we comparison shop across about 27 carriers to provide the best price to the consumer. Some of the guiding principles for us recently, since we do provide all of the marketing for our agents, really granular analytics has been very important. By that I mean, as a marketer, targeting individuals, using the right ads, using the right landing pages. But I also mean, once these individuals complete a quote request form, we want to track how we're calling them, how often and when, and see where we can find lift. When we can automate something based on our granular analytics, we find the most lift is available to us. But we also need to audit our processes. So one of the things that we find happens pretty frequently is as soon as we automate something, we figure out some portion of it that was benefiting from human intervention and see if we can kind of try to simulate that with the automation. Specializing on sales is a big key factor in this automation because our agents do not prospect. They only call leads that we present them. So they really are just selling. And we leverage technology to make sure that we're delivering the right leads to them at the right time. We can examine some of these challenges in our lead process in more detail. When we first get a lead in the system, we're going to be calling it within most likely 15 seconds. That's important to us because we measure that and we try to figure out how often an individual needs to be called after that first touch in order to increase the likelihood that we will contact them. If we do not contact them via phone, or if we do and it's very brief, figuring out how the prospect would like to communicate in the future is very important. We do all our sales over the phone, so getting that direct dial number is always important, and that's something that we try to do with our leads, with our web forms, but that doesn't always work out. The lead volume scalability issue for us has been huge since we are growing so quickly. And when we want to talk about our brand, displaying it in a safe and compliant manner has been very important to us. So after we started working with Conversica, we saw some pretty compelling results very quickly. As you can see, about 18,000 leads were worked, and we contacted about 1,900 of them with our agents. We had 143 quotes, 52 policies, and quite a bit lower cost per acquisition versus brand new leads. So this was used on leads that we'd already spent the money to generate. So it's quite a bit of lift for us when we can have a 30% lower cost per acquisition on leads we've already paid for.
So thanks, Alex. Those are some transformative results. Let me break down kind of the secret sauce for Conversica, and then I'll show you some real machine-to-human dialogues. Firstly, what Conversica is about is asking really smart questions that are perceived to be coming from a human. We A/B tested these questions last year in over 6 million emails, and to drive a high response rate. We want to have dialogues with as many prospects as we can. In B2C sales like insurance, we see response rate as high as 50%, but that's highly contingent on the quality of the lead, obviously. But getting any rate up towards 50% it truly is transformative for our customers. After asking these really smart questions, we analyze the responses to those emails using 4 layers of natural language processing. That's the AI component. Keywords, word grouping, sentiment, intent, those are the 4 layers. And 95% of the time, we can tell if a prospect is a hot lead or a dead lead. We're able to continue a two-way dialogue with a prospect, which is something that even Siri can't do. So building upon conversations back and forth and teeing up a warm conversation for an agent, that's a key element of our core IP. Of course, all this rich information is uploaded into Salesforce for the agent to leverage. Now let me show you a sample dialogue. So the lead comes in, you can see at the upper right, it came in at November 20th at 9:20 a.m. We wait a couple minutes as a best practice to respond so that's not perceived to be an auto dialer. And we drive high deliverability and response rates with a message. You can see the Hi William message here. We do that with a simple text message, so no rich HTML. It's above the fold, so it's easy to read on any device, anywhere, anytime. We get a lot of mobile responses. And there's no links to content or downloads because we do not want this to be perceived like a marketing automation blast. And it's redacted here for confidentiality, but we include Mary's name, her title, her company, and a direct dial phone number. And again, this is going to help with deliverability, which in B2C is over 95% for us. In this case, the prospect responds to Mary on the first effort, but more often than not, Mary pings the prospect 1, 5, and as many as 10 times over several weeks to get a response. And we do that to kind of create the long tail of leads because prospects have life events or things that get in the way, but may be very interested in your services. So, hey, we see responses, hey, I was on vacation in Europe for the last few weeks, and Mary, thank you for being so persistent. I do want to follow up on this. But again, in this case, Denise responds on the first inquiry, and she lets it be known that she's inquiring on behalf of her husband, William, about his dental and vision. And so at this point, using the 4 layers of natural language processing, we say this is a hot lead, and we alert the rep about the positive response and provide these initial discovery nuggets. After that positive response, we insert now the agent into the conversation. So, William, Casey's working on this and would like to give you a call. We take the number that was in the lead to web form and confirm if it's the right direct number to call William and Denise at. Denise responds, okay, we would prefer email communications. My husband doesn't answer the phone. This is getting back to what Alex was saying. right up front. You really want to understand what their preferred channel of communication is, and we've been able to do that leveraging Conversica. Of course, at this point, agents don't always follow through on the hot leads through error or messages that get lost in translation. They try the phone or the email with the attachments and the quote goes to spam folders. And so what our system is a closed loop. And here's a dialogue then 2 days later that says, on November 22nd, says, William, just wanted to make sure that Casey was able to connect with you. And so this allows us to uncover opportunities at risk. In this case, Denise responds positively that they're still evaluating the insurance quote, and so the agent can continue the sales process. And Conversica will be stopped at this point. There are cases where it's a negative response, and in that case, Conversica alerts the agent that this is a hot lead at risk. And if appropriate, we also send that alert to the sales manager, so if they see trends in lost opportunities, they can mitigate why those opportunities are getting lost and work as a team to intervene. Here you can see in the dashboard, we've got the 25% of leads at risk. We can see the number of leads worked and the overall engagement, and all of this key dashboard insights are all within the Salesforce UI. So a manager or a rep can see how they're performing without leaving Salesforce at all. The use case that we've been talking about is a business hours use case, so it's real-time leads that we're engaging with, and the engagement rate, and all these numbers, by the way, may swing by 5 points or more in either direction. They're just a sample to help you understand as you go down in kind of lead quality, what are the response rates that we get, and what does that mean in terms of eventual sales qualified leads. And so business hours is what we've been talking about, but also after hours, we have a lot of mid-tier insurance companies where the agents leave at 5 or 6 p.m. and they need a mechanism to keep those agents warm. That's a key use case. We have case studies for that on our website. Cross-sell is a really hot topic in the industry today. So now I've got you as a customer. How am I going to cross-sell you additional products? And we've been very effective with that. And then re-engage and win back. Well, these are customers that have either through neglect or purpose have canceled their policy, and you want to try to get them back. You can't. It's hard to distinguish which ones really need to renew their policy versus those that have gone away to another carrier. And obviously, the results are a lot less. But literally, you are pulling gold out of the dead pool and monetizing it. And so our customers see a big value in this as well. So that gives you a sense for some of the use cases. Let me just go in here and summarize here of what our benefit here is to insurance. And at a high level, what we're doing here is we're transforming what today is a human process that's error prone because agents make their own decisions about what leads are hot versus not. And a lot of it's still an analog process, whether it's a dialing process or something else. And we're transforming that front end of the funnel human process into an entirely digital process that's data-driven. And what that does is it increases engagement rate. Obviously, it separates the tire kickers from the real buyers. It collects all this rich information, direct dial numbers, discovery information, feeds it into Salesforce. And then it's going to track the agent performance and team performance to better manage folks. So that's really the summary of the solution. At this point, I'm going to turn the mic back to Jeff to take us down the finish line on the content and Q&A. Jeff?
Excellent. Thank you. So we've got quite a bit of time left to handle some questions. Let's do a quick poll. How many times do you think your reps are attempting to contact the prospect before they close them out?
And Jeff, I'm going to ad lib here, and I'm going to answer one of these questions real quick here because it's one of my favorites. So it's about, the question is about IBM Watson and what differentiates Conversica. What Watson does and what Siri does is they actually answer questions to a huge knowledge base. So there, Watson's able to find you that perfect athletic pullover for the environment that you're looking to go running in. Conversica is different in that we ask really simple questions to identify intent, and then we pass it off to a human for any detailed product information. So in our insurance use case, the way that would apply is if the prospect says, Alex, or I'll go use Mary. Mary, does your dental and vision cover me if I'm overseas in Europe? And Mary would simply answer, Casey is working on that answer for you. What's a good direct number to call you at? So that's the major way that we differentiate between Watson and other folks. Jeff, back to you.
Thanks so much for picking up on one of those questions. So let's take a look at the results here. Many of you are indicating that it takes maybe between one and five contacts before you actually reach a human on the other end. That's pretty much about right. We've worked with other customers where it actually takes as much as 6 calls to reach prospects. And in either case, whether we're talking about 3 calls or 6 calls, when those calls really add up during the course of the day, and it becomes a very tiring process for sales reps. And what happens then is that these sales reps actually will not go back down their callback list to reach out and follow up with certain customers. So very interesting results here. Thank you, everyone. Let's end with a summary of some parting thoughts that we want to share with you that actually came from Mark Benioff. And you can see here that Mark believes that we are in fact in the kind of the early stages of artificial intelligence, but and it's going to pervade every aspect of any company that interacts with customers, particularly because we're dealing with, and particularly in B2C when there's just a high volume of possible touch points. And he sees this as a revolution in data science. Clearly, it's going to have a fundamental change in the way it's going to transform business models. We're starting to see that in the realm of financial services with the likes of Betterment, Robo Advisors, right? And it's going to reach the point, and I think the key takeaway here is that it's going to reach the point where artificial intelligence is almost transparent to the customer journey. So your policyholder could be interacting with a Conversica, or it could be interacting with a human, and it's going to reach the point where the lines are begin to blur, and there's very little distinction between the contact center and again interacting with Conversica. Which actually leads me to a funny question here that someone raised. So Eric, have you put Conversica through the Turing Test? And has anybody actually been able to tell that they're interacting with Conversica as opposed to a human?
Yeah, so let me make 2 points. Conversica absolutely passes the Turing Test, and people are fooled all the time into thinking it's a human, because of the way that we've architected the solution. And the interesting thing is, large brands, we work with Fortune 50 companies, ask us, well, what happens when the prospect finds out that it's a machine versus human interacting with them? What's their reaction? And the reaction we've had is, we're providing great customer service, great sales service with a Mary never has an attitude adjustment, never quits, always follows up. And so based on that great customer experience, when they find out, they say, wow, that's cool, because I'm getting the service that I want. It would be another case, I think, if we didn't provide such great service, but we're seeing actually NPS scores lifted by some of our major customers in using Conversica versus humans at the front end of the funnel. Thanks for the question, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, I've got another question here coming in for Alex. Alex, could you tell us about any failures that you have faced with new growth or productivity initiatives. And could you share with us some lessons that you may have learned from those failures?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest lessons is as we've been growing so quickly and adding new sales agents, we kind of planned on changing how we train and changing how we kind of do continuing education with our agents in order to squeeze more and more quality leads out of our funnel. Because as you said, there's more quantity but not necessarily more quality. So when we're adding agents, we can't just say, okay, go out and generate more leads. So what we did was we kind of came up with a new training plan, a new script, and a bunch of new incentives to try to get agents to follow up with leads more effectively and make everything a little more efficient. So we had the ability to feed more agents. That didn't really work that well, and we kind of started to realize, especially you're in a sales environment, you are going to want to have people do things because they think it's in their best interests or because they want to, rather than have them do things because you told them to or because you trained them on it and you said that's the way to go. So using something like Conversica as we've grown, it kind of takes that takes that email follow-up out of the agent's hands. And in the past, we've been so specialized that if someone wanted to converse over email and was able to tell one of our agents that, the likelihood that that email conversation ever happened was highly variable from agent to agent, and in some cases was very low. So that failure, where we just kind of relied on training to change the way follow-ups were done and instead used a tool that automated it, like Conversica, was definitely something that helped us.
Thank you very much. And just I want to add a follow-up question to that, Alex. What are some of the primary channels through which you used Conversica to engage with customers? Was it primarily email, or were you also using text, social media, maybe even scripting in contact centers? Could you share with us other channels that you've used with Conversica?
So right now, Conversica for us has really just been all about email. The reason for that is we saw email specifically mentioned in so many of our lead notes or call recordings that we listen to, and we felt that that was the easiest and quickest way to make an impact, was to say, all right, let's instead of just trying to get our agents to follow up with people that truly would prefer email, let's do it for them and kind of take them out of the equation. That has made such a big impact that we're now looking at other ways to use it. And I think some of our findings in listening to some of our calls more recently is people are interested in text messages for sure, and we know we get fantastic interactions with the Medicare crowd on Facebook, believe it or not, very, very big Facebook users. So those are the two we're looking at next.
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much.
That's really cool.
There's another question.
Hey, Jeff,
Go ahead, Eric.
Jeff, let me intervene and add on to that. That's really interesting, Alex. And so we, in our discussions with insurance folks, we are considering a text solution. But the only thing it gives us pause is this new FCC regulation about, robo text. Again, Conversica works for an inbound lead flow of folks that have opted in. So it wouldn't apply to some of the FCC regulations, but we are cautious. We definitely want people to specifically opt in that they would be interested in the text, and we're looking at the business case to support that going forward. So back to you, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you for that. Another question coming in, and maybe I'll start and then I'll pass it on to you, Eric. The question is, are there any prerequisite things that need to be in place before one could deploy Conversica? And I'll just start by saying that Conversica is one of the very few players that Salesforce is partnering with in the artificial intelligence space. What you'd want is to have a Sales Cloud engagement platform on top of which Conversica would leverage the customer data and opportunities from Salesforce. And as those opportunities advance, Conversica is able to feed it back into Sales Cloud. So definitely what you'd want as a prerequisite is the Sales Cloud platform from Salesforce. Eric, did you have anything else to add to this question?
Yeah, I mean, we've got an off-the-shelf Salesforce connector. We try to push everything into what the agent sees, so that they're not having to learn a new UI or a new process. So we just feed into the existing processes. A lot of folks use us, including Alex, along with Power Dialer, Team Dialer types of solutions. And our getting folks up and running, the long poles in the tent are setting up an email domain from which to send the emails out, so we have high deliverability. Choosing the name of the persona, typically women's names from the 70s and 80s tend to get the highest response rates. And we get people up and running and measured in days, not weeks.
Thank you for that. Another interesting question here, and this is more of a higher level one. Either Eric or Alex, do you think that Robo Advisors could ever replace humans? I mean, we've mentioned betterment and the rise of financial services Robo Advisors. I mean, are we ever going to see a day where you can take the human out of the customer journey?
This is Alex. I think you're going to find individuals and cohorts where that works, and you will be able to take humans out of the equation. My feeling is that just as some people are always going to prefer being contacted in different ways, be it email, phone, snail mail, I think you're always going to have a subset of humanity that vastly prefers to speak with humans. So I think you're going to be able to do some of that. I don't think it's going to completely eliminate the human element.
Right. What do you think, Eric?
So let me add to that. So the neat thing about Conversica, as you can tell, is we really don't try to replace human behavior at all for anything that's sophisticated, and that's why we don't answer questions, detailed product questions, for example. What we're trying to do is we're trying to eliminate the grunt work of figuring out who wants to talk to you. So in that regard, we absolutely think we're going to remove that kind of human activity because it's a no-brainer. It's similar to the DocuSign story. Why would you do it analog when you could do it digital? And I'll put a bold stake in the ground to say that, a substantial portion, call it 50% plus, of corporate communications in the next 5 years or so are going to turn to be machine-driven versus human-driven. And we're probably already halfway towards that goal, so it's not a big reach. But I think you're going to find AI pervasive at replacing the grunt kind of blocking and tackling that humans do today.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I mean, we can already see AI in our everyday life. As you were talking, I was reminded of IKEA, right, with the automated virtual assistant named Helen, that can help you purchase a product, or Alaska Airlines. They have an AI, which they call Jen, who can help you with travel information. So definitely, a great point. You may not entirely eliminate the human from the journey in some cases, but it's things are going to reach a point where the interaction with an AI is going to be very, very transparent and very pervasive. I have another question coming in, and this is directed at Eric. Can Conversica be used for B2B use cases? Alex had shared a case study that's somewhat B2C. How about on the B2B front?
Absolutely. So in high tech, for example, we have customers like RingCentral, Five9, Urban Airship, Job Science, et cetera, that use us in B2B use cases. But as it applies to insurance, what's interesting is we're talking to some of our customers and prospects about how we could use Conversica to, for example, recruit agents to a sales and marketing platform. So those are use cases that are absolutely appropriate for Conversica.
Excellent. Thank you. Here's one for Alex, and just whatever you feel comfortable disclosing, but this person seems to be interested in quantifying some benefits here. So question to you, Alex, how many more agents do you think you would need if you didn't have Conversica?
If I look strictly at production, I would say at the very least I would need 3 to 5 full-time employees to replace what Conversica has done so far, and I think we've just scratched the surface with that. So I think we're going to uncover a lot more.
That's amazing. That's some direct, tangible savings right there. Excellent. Thank you. The other question, and this is back to Eric. Does Conversica connect with Marketing Cloud?
Yes, we are. We have a Pardot integration, for example. I mean, Pardot's part of the Sales Cloud, but most people think of it as the Marketing Cloud. We're looking at connections to ExactTarget as well, and but we do those integrations on if we don't have an off-the-shelf connector. We do those integrations on a regular basis using our professional services team. But expect to see more off-the-shelf connectors from us to both marketing automation and CRM.
Got it. Yeah, and maybe just as a follow-up, the Marketing Cloud question here, maybe they're alluding to the Journey Builder. I mean, could you have an insurer map out a customer journey using Journey Builder and then trigger an interaction with Conversica? So could they establish rules in a journey and then say, all right, let's kick off a Conversica process?
Yeah, so typically in marketing automation, if they receive, say, a Pardot or ExactTarget marketing blast, and then there's a trigger event, like they press on a download or go to another landing page, then Conversica does the grunt work of what an agent or a business development rep would do, and Conversica reaches out and says, "Hi Jeff, saw you just downloaded that content. Did you get all the information you needed? Mary, have a great day." And so we work really nicely in conjunction with the nurturing of marketing automation in reaching out to people as they hit triggers of activity.
Excellent, thank you. Question directed to Alex. It's a question about just next best action and product recommendations. How are you handling next best action and product recommendations today? Is that primarily handled through training, or are you leveraging Conversica, or what are your plans around handling next best action?
That's a very timely question. We in the past had just for instance, a cross-sell is a great next best action, and we've been basically incentivizing that with commission. But we're definitely seeing is an opportunity to at least introduce that cross-sell using Conversica. We're working on a project right now with our reps at Conversica to have a cross-sell kind of next best action campaign with Conversica. And in addition to that, something that's a little more specific to us is we have our own policy retention department where we kind of provide customer service and answer questions for individuals every year before their renewal time to see if there's a better plan for them or any other way we can help them. And a second project we're working on with Conversica right now is to have that policy retention department have their own Conversica campaign where we reach out via email to these individuals first and see if they'd prefer to correspond that way or if they'd still like us to call them. So those are two things we're actually working on right now.
Oh, that's fantastic. Wow. Eric, do you want to share any thoughts on your product roadmap with regard to things like next best action and cross-sell?
I've shared that we're going to do more integrations, but at this point, I got to save the secrets for a big event like Dreamforce.
All right. Yeah, very good. Well, maybe something that's related here, and just whatever you can disclose. It's an interesting question here. Does Conversica get smarter as it learns more from each interaction?
Yeah, absolutely. So the machine learning aspect of the AI is that across a use case, it will figure out how to optimize for time zones. So zip code or telephone number, East Coast, West Coast. It'll experiment across a use case of best times to get a response, and then it'll train the other outreach efforts to optimize for the response level. So absolutely, there's machine learning to drive up the engagement rate.
Excellent. And with regard to the machine learning, can your customers feed it with product information, additional customer information to perhaps accelerate the learning, or maybe allow Conversica to act on certain rules that your customer may want to establish?
Yeah, so the beauty of our solution is that it's not overbuilt, I would say, because we avoid answering knowledge-based types of questions. We think that's better handled by the salesperson in the process, so we're not disintermediating them, if you will. But the flip side of that is, because we don't have to answer a lot of product-specific stuff or tee up a knowledge base, that enables our customers to onboard quickly and start seeing the results of Conversica, very quickly. If we were to do a knowledge-based approach, the install would be months, not days. So that's the elegance of the solution.
Thank you. I have a question for Alex. Much of your case study was really focused on the upfront selling process. Do your agents handle any kind of servicing requests?
One of the big challenges for us is how can we maximize our agents' effectiveness. And as I mentioned, since our agents don't do prospecting, we want them to be selling full time. And so servicing and kind of explaining the products and just answering general questions for our prospects is a huge time suck for our agents. So in the past, what we had done is we had tried to directionally move away from leads and marketing channels that were resulting in those kinds of questions, but you can never really completely get rid of that. And we also want to feel like we are offering highest level service to our prospects and in the end our customers. So some of the ideas we've had for incorporating Conversica into this has been really focused on our lead scoring that we do. So we have different personas that we've created for our prospects. We certainly feel that there's an opportunity to reach out to those individuals, perhaps first with Conversica, if they're in a certain persona, before we even call them, and start a dialogue there. Because we think a lot of those upfront questions could be handled by one of our customer service agents rather than one of our sales agents if we can have that email conversation up front. So in addition to that, we're also, like I mentioned, on our policy retention side, thinking about that new campaign where we will try to reach out to current customers already and ask them if they have questions already so we can have the right person call them back rather than somebody who would prefer be spending their time doing something else. Excellent.
And that's such a great point because especially in insurance, retention is such a big issue, right? I mean, essentially it is a business of retention. Many of them are shooting for retention of above 80%, right? And so to your point, the servicing process and the reminders, reaching out to policyholders who have policies that need renewing is such an important part of that process. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing, have you seen with some of your customers any visible uplift in retention rate post the introduction of Conversica?
Based on the amount of policy retention agents we have, we prioritize who they're calling and interacting with based on scoring that we're doing for the likelihood of that person to churn or the likelihood of them to retain. And because of that, there's just no way with our current size that we're able to communicate with all of these individuals. So I know that there will be at least some sort of lift because there are going to be people that we would not have been able to call in the past that we will at least be able to email under this campaign.
Thank you. A question to you, Eric. Obviously, Conversica gets smarter, right, over time as it interacts more and more with customers. And I would think that along the way, it's also amassing a lot of rich customer data, behavioral data, things of that nature. What kinds of analytics can you do with Conversica?
First and foremost is because, again, we're replacing the human analog activity with a digital data-driven one, we're able to really see and control for any external human behaviors. We're really able to see the performance of various lead sources. So we're able to see productivity across individuals, teams, and groups. But on the lead sources, maybe I'll turn it back to and use cases, by the way, too. But I'll turn it back to Alex. Alex, from the analytics you get, from Conversica across lead sources, has it helped you, optimize more in your marketing purchases?
Absolutely. I mean, what we use it for now is we certainly see certain lead sources that just do not respond to the Conversica program. So it's pretty easy for us to see that. even just within Salesforce with the Conversica integration, and remove those, which is good for cost savings for us. But another thing we're kind of starting to move into is we're going to be able to take on potentially lower quality and lower cost lead sources and just be able to have that first touch point be Conversica and see if we can make those back out for us when agents aren't wasting time trying to track those people down on the phones. So those are two things, one that we're currently doing and one that I think we're going to be doing very shortly that involve the reporting and analytics that we get through the Conversica integration in Salesforce.
Thank you for that. Well, I think this wraps up the question portion, and we've got 5 minutes left. I'd like to leave everyone on the line some thoughts here. You know, the title of this webinar is How Artificial Intelligence Drives Insurance Sales. And when you see AI, you're perhaps like me, your knee-jerk reaction may be, wow, like AI, are you kidding me? That sounds like it's really far away. And hopefully what you're taking away from here is the fact that it is here, it's happening now. We've got great customer stories in which they're using tools like Conversica to create natural dialogues with customers at scale while retaining a very personalized experience for those customers. And I've learned, that's my takeaway, that wow, this is really here, and it's being introduced into the insurance space in a really big way. Let's talk a little bit about calls to action. This year at Dreamforce, which will be mid-September, the insurance industry is going to have a massive presence at Dreamforce. So Eric, myself, and the broader industries team at Salesforce would welcome everyone on the line to find us at Dreamforce, and tap us on our shoulder, and let's continue the dialogue about the future of insurance. Feel free to reach out to us. We will follow up beyond this call, beyond this webinar, with a thank you note, and you will see a way to reach us, as well as access additional resources. So with that, again, I want to thank everyone for your time and for actively participating in the Q&A.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us in this rich conversation.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.